Well, the Australian government has been calling, but so far there's no answer. China has yet to respond to a request for more information on why it's stopped the import of some Australian goods. First it was barley and then beef. Today, the dairy industry asked for an urgent meeting, worried they'll be the next exporter to feel the pinch. All up, Australian exports to China are worth $153 billion. It represents more than a third of Australia's exports. That's more than what we export to our next 5 biggest trading partners: Japan, the United States, South Korea, India and New Zealand combined. As Greg Jennett reports, the beef blockage has put struggling exporters on edge and highlighted deep political divisions over how to deal with Beijing.
For a guy with box loads of beef locked in a Chinese chiller...
It's not the first time, of course, and it's actually not the first country that's had problem with importing requirements.
Simon Stahl's one very cool meat exporter.
Yes, it's an inconvenience, and yes, it's always disappointing to be out of a market, but we can recover quite quickly.
Based in the acclaimed beef capital of Casino, the Northern Co-op Meat Company's one of 4 Australian abattoirs, with product caught by Chinese health and labelling checks. The co-op's calm, the Trade Minister's trying to be.
China has made clear, both publicly and privately, that these are technical matters of trade dispute.
Scott Morrison is too.
From time to time there'll be differences of views about those issues and we'll seek to progress them in a very constructive way.
But all around them, attitudes towards Beijing are bullish, to say the least.
Australians will now expect their government to demonstrate the necessary political fortitude to focus on those issues within our power to control, namely a plan for reparations.
They're ill-considered, reckless and irresponsible calls work directly against our national interest.
If China had a plan to cleave Australian political cohesion in the COVID era, it's working, across parties and within them.
That's right.
One Labor frontbencher's publicly invoking the Howard-era description of Australia acting as America's deputy sheriff in its pursuit of an international inquiry into the origins of the disease.
When you act on your own, you do find yourself being back in that realm that John Howard found himself in with the infamous Deputy Sheriff's statement. The hold-up of goods at the border, whether coal, wine or beef, has always highlighted the anxieties of Australian traders. But because of the timing and Beijing's recent diplomacy, accusations it's trying to coerce are inevitable. Just as predictable are its denials.
These are 2 totally different things. I don't think you should take them as one or make any erroneous political interpretation.
It'll take a little more than that to dissuade the interpretations here. Greg Jennett, ABC News, Canberra.
So what's it going to take to resolve this stoush with China? Our China correspondent Bill Birtles joins us now. Bill, why won't the Trade Minister's Chinese counterpart just pick up the phone and discuss the issue with Australia?
Well, Matt, officials here in Beijing will not answer that question publicly. If they do opt for a bit of diplomacy, chances are it will be behind closed doors. But in general, China's government is doing the bare minimum to try and convince Australians that these 2 new measures are not related to politics. In fact, a state media editorial today said that Australia must learn some lessons, and it listed a long back catalogue of perceived slights, everything from the government in Australia banning Huawei from the 5G right through to this latest call for an independent investigation into coronavirus. So, Matt, it appears China is now content to sit back, watch the Australian domestic debate and see whether a little bit of economic pressure can change Australia's attitudes towards China.
All right, Bill, thank you. Bill Birtles in Beijing. And back home, Queensland farmers face a nervous wait as the fallout from the Chinese beef ban unfolds. Cattle producers are hoping the trade tensions can be smoothed over quickly, but in the meantime have been left with huge feed bills and nowhere to send their cattle. Ellie Bradfield reports.
Left counting the cost. The Winter family runs a 700-head Wagyu feeding operation on Queensland's Southern Downs, but overnight their market disappeared.
We actually had 4 decks of bullocks due to go to load out tomorrow morning and another 6 decks on next month. So that's worth $700,000 to us.
They're left with no choice but to keep their cattle at home, which comes with a price tag of $6 a day for each animal.
We just got to keep feeding them. We can't send them somewhere else because all the other guys are going to be in the same boat as us.
Kilcoy Pastoral Company, Beef City near Toowoomba and Dinmore Meatworks in Ipswich are the 3 Queensland abattoirs affected by China's trade ban. The beef trade is worth about $4.9 billion in exports to the Queensland economy, and China is a key customer.
If we go into a full-blown trade war, this could mean over 3,200 workers impacted. This is really serious.
We don't need another beef with China over this issue. So I call on the federal government to resolve this as soon as possible.
Agforce says Australia can find new markets for its beef if China doesn't want it.
And I'm confident that we've got the trust and respect of other consumers that they'll come along and take the product up whilst we're having the issues with China.
If history is anything to go by, it will be an expensive trading halt for those involved.
Typically it's months, it's not something that fixes overnight.
This ban couldn't come at a worse time for farming families. After battling years of drought, COVID-19 has seen a big drop in demand for beef due to restaurant closures. And now many are asking themselves just how much more they can take.
My stomach churns every day when you get out of bed thinking, OK, what does today bring us? And, we are Australian and I guess we do keep fighting.
They're hoping for a change in fortune sometime soon. Ellie Bradfield, ABC News, Leigh.